Welcome to this Transitioning Humanitarians in the very odd hour. I understand that, but I am still committing to do this because I have other things come up at the hour that we're doing. And plus, Vicky unfortunately can't join because she's traveling. So that's why we still wanted to deliver this message to you as much as possible around decision making, right? Remember that January was a decision making for um, humanitarians who are transitioning, who are thinking about it, who are wondering how that is. So we made this year to be very applicable, and we really want to help you get to a decision that you really like. So this is the fourth episode around transitioning, and this time we wanted to talk about what happens after having made the decision, right? Because oftentimes I think we have this idea that if we made the decision that everything's going to be rosy and we will just flow through the process of going to what we want. But oftentimes I have observed that that's not the case. And especially if we're not used to making decisions in life, especially if we believe that decision making is not a good thing, especially if we believe that staying where we are in the comfort zone, or even if it's like suffering and hard place that we work in, or the situation we're in, we still get used to that environment, and therefore making a decision and changing that can be very challenging for our brains. So that's why I really wanted to give you some strategies around how to handle after having decided what you want to do and how to go through that process. So, one of the things that I have noticed from my clients that I coach is that whenever they have made the decision, what often comes up is their brain will be reminding of the past failures. And this is very common. And the reason why our brains do that is because our brains are afraid of making the same mistake again. So that's why it's like the fear is doing its job of reminding ourselves that, are you sure? Is this really what you want? Are you sure you want to wreck everything? Or are you sure this, da, 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 right? So that's why our brains are going to likely to remind ourselves of this happening. And oftentimes, what we do then is that we start then questioning and doubting whether that was the right decision, whether it wasn't the right decision. And then we start having a lot of overthinking, a lot of doubting, hesitation. And then we tend to stay in that environment. And in order to like relieve ourselves of that constant overthinking and this buzz, we want to like go back and redo or cancel our decision, right? So that's why I really wanted you to consider this alternative, in case you don't want to be canceling that decision that you have made, is spend that time that you have made after having made that time, spend that time building your muscles of trust, that trusting yourself that you have made the decision that you wanted, not the decision that you had to, remember, but the decision that you wanted, and standing by that decision and building your muscles around that decision and building your muscle of trust with yourself that no matter what the outcome of that decision will be, you can handle it. You will know what to do, right? Spend that time instead of battling with yourself and with the fear and keep canceling your decision over and over. Instead of doing that, spend time grounding yourself and trusting yourself that you really trusted when you made the decision, and you're going to trust that you will be fine whatever the outcome of that decision. So that's the one thing that I would really recommend for you to work on it, because the more muscle you build of trusting yourself, the more you realize that you will really be fine going through that decision, or you will know what to do even if that decision does not go the way you want. So that's one thing that I would love for you to consider practicing more. The other thing that I would love to consider, I would love you to consider is building your commitment. Now, this is something that I've seen a lot with myself and my humanitarians that I coach is I have seen that we have also a bit of a commitment issue at times, especially committing to the decision about what we really want. Because we tend not to really make decisions around what we really want. It seems after a certain period of application, certain period of being in our careers, and then somehow we get the idea that we just need to go through it, have to, and this kind of thing. And then therefore, when it comes to really making decision around what I truly want, and then we have made the decision, then committing to that decision somehow becomes something new that we haven't really done. Because in the past, we were so good at forcing ourselves, so good at doing things just because we had to, right? And then now making a decision around this is really what I want, then committing to that becomes a challenge. So that's why the way that you could spend after having made the decision is committing yourself over and over to that decision, reminding yourself why you have made the decision and how you have made the decision. And now you are committing to that and committing to making that work, right? And you can also get curious as to how commitment feels like for you, how you're going to do that. Because the way that I think about commitment is that you keep choosing it over and over consciously. And sometimes maybe it will become like very automatic, not very natural. But until that point, until it feels natural, you really need to work a bit on this consciously, especially if your tendency is keep changing things, especially your tendency is to uh, keep rethinking, keep hesitating, keep doubting. If that's your tendency, then committing to one decision and keep committing to it becomes like a very unusual thing to do. And that's why we really need to train our mind to commit to this is the decision I have made. I have made it on purpose. I have decided this is what I want to do, and therefore committing to that, right? So one of the examples that I really want to give you that I am experiencing currently is I have decided at the beginning of the year that I will walk 10,000 k every day, right? And I have been doing that, and every day sometimes I need to commit to it, and some days it's easy, some days it's not, but still I really need to kind of consciously do that every day until it becomes like my new norm, right? So that's why the same way goes um, for you to committing to your decision that you have made, and you keep answering your questions, like your brain keeps posing questions around, is this really how you're wanting to do, or is this really wise, and whatever the questions that your brain will be offering, answer them immediately, saying that you have made the decision consciously because of X, Y, or Z reasons, and you are committing to that decision now, right? So another example that you can think about that I hear many dads and moms tell me is that let's say that the child had a practice of, I don't know, watching the phone the whole time. Let's say this is like the situation it was. And then parents installed a rule that they can only watch, I don't know, 2 hours per day, let's say, right? Now, obviously, child will keep coming and saying, no, no, I want the phone, I want the phone, I want the phone, right? But then what parents often then do is like committing to their decision and committing to their reasons why they think is the right thing, and therefore committing to that, even though the child will have the tantrums and all the things, but the parents will still commit to that decision and to that reasoning why they did it, and then they keep committing and keep explaining and keep showing the child why this is how it's going to be. And I feel like oftentimes our brains might have that tendency as well of after making a decision, our brains is like will be like, no, that's not what I want, or that's hard, and that's we don't know it, it's unpredictable. what, who you kidding and all the things, and then it will be like in this tantrum mode. And especially in those modes, it's crucial that we don't change our decisions, right? We don't make any changes to our decision that we have made from that place of tantrum, from that place of urge, from that place of, I want to like do something kind of a place. We don't want to make any changes from that place, because that place is usually the fear, the scarcity that's making us, force us to go back to the usual routines or usual comfort zone, because our brains don't like to be in the uncomfortable zone. So that's why reminding ourselves that even after having made the decision, there will be times when it will be very uncomfortable. It will feel like, I wish I could like change things. I could like do something. But in those moments, it's crucial that we don't change. And the other thing that I loved that someone was giving advice to parents with children was that we are not quitting on the bad day. If the child comes from sports exercise and says, "Mom, I want to quit. I don't want to do this anymore because I had a bad day," right? And parents are not allowed to say, okay, let's just quit because of the difficulty, right? So it's the same goes for us adults. When we have made the decision and then this moment comes where it's like very difficult, very uncomfortable, and we need to stick to our decision. In those moments, quitting on ourselves or saying that, okay, let's just change everything and go back to normal and not do anything about it, would be crucially damaging. And the reason why it would be damaging is because we would be telling our brains that we're not capable of going through difficulties, we're not capable of standing by our choices, we're not capable of committing to what is important to us, right? So that's why we would be basically ruining our relationships with ourselves. So that's why if you don't want to do that, then I would highly recommend that you practice that muscle of trusting yourself, trusting your decision, commit to your decision, and get curious as to what feelings coming up in the process. What feelings coming up in the process of you between you having made the decision and you starting to execute your decision? What feelings are coming up? Because if the feelings are mostly fear, notice that this is very normal, meaning that this is very likely that's going to come up, especially as I said, around the decision that is really in your, like, you're doing it because you really want to. Because our brains will be saying like, well, you are an adult, you're supposed to like just bite the bullet and go through all the difficulty of your previous life. You can't just change things, right? Our brains will be like giving lots of reasons of be adult and whatever the things that our brains will be saying. But we need to then coming back to remind our brains that no, we're making this decision because we really want to. This is our truth. This is our honest desire to want this, and that's why we're going for this, knowing and understanding that there will be challenges, but also knowing and understanding that we are the people who can handle that. And the other thing I would say that especially when you're observing feelings of what's coming up between the time that you have made the decision and the time you start executing the feelings that will come up, notice that if the feelings come up of constraining and urge, it will likely be that fear is letting itself known. And as I said, that's normal. But also, the goal is to experience more of the groundedness, more of the peace, and more of the freedom that comes with that decision, right? And whenever we are feeling those more, that also means that we are getting to the point of now slowly executing, slowly making things happen, and making things happen not from the place of urge or from the place of we have to like make it fast change our decisions, but rather we're getting to accepting our decision, admitting and committing to our decision. And when we are in the place of this freedom, in the place of this groundedness, then we can start looking at how are we going to make the changes, how are we going to make the actions of actually executing the decision that we have made. Now, I want to mention a few strategies that I suggest to people who really have difficulty making changes or making decisions. I really want to give you some strategies that you can try it out and see if it works for you. So, one of the strategies that I tell people who have difficulty making a decision, who have difficulty like keep postponing things, right? I really want them to say, okay, give yourself a pre-decision period, meaning that um, if you have given yourself a deadline, let's say that you have given yourself a deadline of 26th of February, right? By 26th of February, you told yourself you will make the decision. You will make the decision about XYZ. Now, if you're someone who has postponing tendencies, or you're someone who's very afraid of making decisions, experiment with yourself, imagining now, today, let's say, imagine that you are in that period of 26th of February, right? Imagine you are in that future. You imagine you are making a decision now. And imagine you will be making a decision of very clear yes or no decision. In that decision, if you were to make it now, what would it be? And make that decision now. Like, yes, I will transition. No, I will not transition. I will transition this way. I will do this way. No, I will not do this way. Whatever the thing is, choose one or the other, whatever your options are. And give yourself that grace of having the pre-decision, so to say. And then imagine that you have made the decision now. And then sit with it. Right. Like, also in some way in your background that it's not really the real decision, but still give yourself the time of telling yourself, okay, I'm imagining it's 26th of February now, 1 month into the future. I imagine I'm there now and I'm making a decision. And then once you do, what comes up? What are all the things come up? And then start looking at those reasons of how it won't work, what won't work, and all the things. Start looking at them, and then start solving those objections, those issues, those reasons from the place of being the person who trusts yourself, being the person who knows what you're doing, being the certain person who is doing it because you really want to, because you really find it aligned with what's true for you. And start solving those issues from the place of being the person who you really want to solve those things. And by the time you actually arrive at the date of 26th of February, you will have made the shifts, you will have solved a lot of those mind dramas, and then you will arrive at the place with a clear decision of this is what I want, this is how I want to. And it will come even more easier for you to um, accept and be with the decision because you have already spent time being in your decision. Right? You have already spent time being in that decision where you really want to make a decision. You have like embodied being that person who have made the decision, who already solved a lot of the problems along the way in terms of the mindset. And now you get to work on the actual logistical issues and all the other things. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's why I really want to encourage you to think about if you like gave yourself time of, okay, by then I will make the decision. Like imagining now that is the time and make the decision now and start being in that person, in that character, and start looking at, okay, I have made the decision. I'm the person who now does this. What are the things that come up, and start solving for them now. Okay, so that's, I think, is a great place to start. Another great place to look at it is that we believe that whenever we have made the decision, after having made the decision, like there will be a period where we have no control over. Like lots of fears come up, and we're like, we just don't know why and how and all the things. And we just feel like a bit powerless in those moments. And instead of that, once you are in the place of making a decision, imagine you have like like in the previous strategy that I told you, you imagine that you have the version that is very confused and fearful and all the things, and imagine also you have the version where you are very calm, very grounded, very peaceful, certain, and then always imagine bringing yourself back to that version of being very peaceful and certain and then trusting. And we can make that shift within ourselves already. It's just that sometimes when the fears and all the vibrations are so high or so intense that we feel like we can't really do anything about it, as if like all of them is happening to us. But it's not happening to us. It's like our brains, of course, in unconscious ways as well, is offering lots of different ways to warn us and all the things, and that's okay. So in those moments, just being the observant or being the person who shifts to the side of being certain. The way that I always imagine is like when all of these dramas and things happen, I always feel like, okay, I want to be going through this being a certain person. I want to go through this being the trusting person. Let me go look at from that angle. How can I look at from that angle? I imagine like being in the room where lots of noises or different things happening, and I'm already like changing as if my location to another location, and then I'm imagining the same way, going to being the certain person, going to being the trusting person, going to being the confident person. And when I shift myself to being that person, and then I look at it and say, okay, how do I want to solve this jumble? I think the way that also, if you are a very visual person, you can also think of it like imagine you came home and your children like made lots of mess. And then you could be the person who are like shouting at them, like, no, why did you do it? How did you do it? Da, 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 right? But you could also step back and like, how do I want to be the mother who understands this is what happened? It's like done already. I can't like turn back the time. How do I want to communicate with my children, or how do I want to now go to the next step? Right? You can always shift to that version of ourselves all the time. And important thing is to know that we have that version already existing. It's already there, right? It's not like we need to like go and find it. It's already there within us. So recognizing that we have that and then just shifting to that version and say, okay, I see my brain is offering lots of things about my decision. I understand why my brain is offering because it's wanting to protect me, and that's okay. But at the same time, me being a certain person, me being a calm, trusting person, how do I really want to answer them? How do I really want to react to them? How do I want to approach them? What do I want to do with them? And then just having that a bit of a conversation with yourself. And then once you do, those fears will be like, yeah, you got the message. The fear made its message. Fear fulfills its function. It did. And you're grateful about it. And then you just stick to what you have decided and you just go for it. And then the last point I want to make is that I also have people tell me that, okay, let's say we have made the decision and then lots of things come up, and then um, how do we really know it's the right decision? Or how do we really know it was the right decision that I really wanted to make? Maybe at the time I didn't really make the right decision, and now my brain is warning me and telling me that it wasn't the right decision, right? That could well all be true, but whether your decision is the right one or not is it's up to you to qualify it, right? It's not for anyone else to qualify but you. You know what is the right decision for you. And if you at the time didn't make the right decision, let's say, you get curious as to how do you know it's the right decision now to change the previous decision. Like very get very curious, because the way that I always think about myself and my decisions is that whatever the decision I decide, that will be the right decision. I will make that the right decision, because there is no like a, I don't know, a police or law or somewhere someone else telling me what's the right decision, right? It's me who decides what's the right decision. And I always also remind myself that right decision for me is the decision that I have made out of full freedom within me, out of full peace that this is really what I want to do, out of following my desires and my goals. That's always the right decision. Not the decision that's made out of constraint, out of scarcity, or out of fear, or out of, oh my God, I have to do it because I'm an adult or whatever, whatever. But the decision that I have made out of, yes, this is what I really want to do. This is really what's true for me. That's always for me the right decision. So that's why notice that whenever your brain is saying that it's, is this the right decision or not, it's your fear brain is warning you and getting your attention to looking at your decision again. So that's why I really want you to get curious as to, if you change your decision again, what will be the reason for changing it? If it's the reason of fear, I would highly encourage not to change it. But if it's a reason for something new coming up, or you decided that the previous decision was made out of fear and now you want to make out of freedom, whatever that is for you, out of your truth, out of your integrity, I would say that's a decision. So that's why whether it's the right one or not, you decide. And that's, I really wanted to highlight that. Okay, my dears, having said all of this, I really hope that you found it useful. Excuse me. So, as you remember, Vicky and I wanted to organize the monthly meetings for all of us to come up, where you can ask us any questions, and also you can tell us about your journey and decision making and how that's going on. And if you need any help, we're happy to be there to help you go through and get yourself clear as to why you're making this decision over the other, and what are where it's coming from, what feeling is feeling, and all of this. If you are interested in that type of conversation in a group setting, please let us know by sending us your email, and we send you an invite, and it's going to be tomorrow. So um, and if you want coaching around this as well, let us know how you want to get clear around this coaching, sorry, around this transitioning, or around decision making and all of this. Please let us know as well. We'll be happy to coach you as well. So having said that, thank you so much for allowing us to be part of your transitioning journey, and sharing with you our experiences, our tools, so that you can make this decision that you love, and that you move forward with that decision as of February. Okay, my dears, see you next Thursday. Until then, stay safe, stay well.